want to welcome everyone to this webinar on Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Without further ado, I will turn this session over to Debbie. Hopefully she can just say a few words and introduce herself and a little bit about her background, and then we will get started. So Debbie, if you are ready, I will pass it over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debbie Barnhart. I am the Instructional Technology Support Specialist at Pittsburgh Technical Institute. And I've been at Pittsburgh Technical Institute, PTI, for about 5 years now. I started out in the general education department, teaching a variety of classes. We're a two-year career college. We offer about 30 different programs, associate's degrees, and certificate programs. We started our online division about 4 years ago with 0 students, and so we've sort of encountered a lot of different struggles and challenges, I guess you would say, in the last 2 years, and so I'm excited to be presenting today and talking about Collaborate. We used to use Wimba, and we transitioned about a year ago from using Wimba to Collaborate, and about 97% of our instructors who teach in our online division also teach on ground for us. And so they're used to teaching in a traditional classroom. They're used to the face-to-face, having their students 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 hours a week in the classroom. And so teaching online was a challenge for them, let alone incorporating Collaborate, virtual classroom into their teaching, was even more of kind of a shock to their system. So my primary role at PTI is instructor development and instructor training. So basically, I work with our online instructors to develop their online classes, to come up with ways, to put their material in Blackboard in a constructive way, and then also to train them on not only Blackboard, but also on Collaborate, on any of the publisher materials that they're integrating into their course. So I'm not, what you would consider a traditional, I guess, instructional designer or even educational designer. I kind of serve a lot of roles and do a lot of things because we're a pretty small school. Our enrollment is about 1,800 students. Online and on ground. So I also do Blackboard training for the entire school on ground and online, and so that's pretty much my role. So today I'm kind of hoping to cover a couple of things. We kind of talk to you guys about what are your current uses of Collaborate. We currently use Collaborate. We require our online students to attend Collaborate sessions. So each of our instructors holds a live session each week in Collaborate. They typically last between 1 or 2 hours. They use it to deliver material, and then the sessions are recorded, and students have a week to view the session. So we sort of use it a little bit differently as far as not just for office hours or a study group or, hey, let's get together, and collaborate. We're using it as an actual classroom and trying to, get as many students as possible and to have them, have it be interactive and have them, try to be as quote unquote hands-on, in the classroom as we can. So I want to talk about, successes or struggles, or, how you're currently using Collaborate and how you are hoping to use Collaborate. And then just kind of go through some of the things that we've learned, during this last year in implementing, Collaborate with all of our instructors across the board. and you know, having them use Collaborate and kind of not giving them a choice about it. So how we prepare our students to use Collaborate and to interact in an online session, how we prepare our faculty, and then some of the things we've learned, you know, along the way about how to kind of maximize the space and get some interactivity in there and use tools and use application sharing, and then, you know, perhaps most importantly for our instructors, how to preserve their work. So, you know, how to save their presentations, you know, how to save whiteboard files, how to save the actual session, how to download MP3 or MP4 and upload it to a space where, you know, they could then share that video in the future. So, you know, those are just some of the things that I'm hoping to get through today. So I know that Kim already went over some of this, but just some general housekeeping. As far as the Collaborate interface, I know you guys are already familiar with it, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay with the audio wizard if you're having trouble with hearing or using your microphone. The emoticons, the hand raising, the answering polls section, and then the chat area as well. So just a quick poll, if you guys could let me know, A, B, C, or D, how do you currently use Collaborate? How many times a week are you using Collaborate? So if you could just give me a quick A, B, C, or D, how you guys are using Collaborate. Okay, it looks like a lot of A's so far. B, A's, another B. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you seem to be using Collaborate between not at all or 1 to 3 times during the week, it seems. So maybe using it primarily, thinking about using it, maybe, you know, you're getting ready to, maybe you're using it for office hours, which brings me to my next question. So those of you who are using it, if you could give me an A, B, C, or D, are you using it primarily for meetings with colleagues or for webinar, remote office hours, actually teaching students, or not currently using Collaborate? Okay, so again, it looks like the majority of you, most of you using it for meetings, or, okay, supervising students who hold online study sessions, not currently using Collaborate. Okay. Okay, great. So it seems like for the majority of you, Collaborate is a relatively new thing, at least in the area of showing instructors how to use it. Okay, great. So kind of in the sort of exploratory phase, trying to maybe figure out how it fits with your particular organization, or your institution, maybe just, you know, testing it out for meetings and whatnot and kind of seeing if it would fit as far as using it to actually teach students. So for those of you who are a bit fearful, or, you know, who are sort of uncertain about how Collaborate will work with students, I can tell you that we are a success story. I feel like, you know, PTI, as I said, we have about 30 online instructors right now who are using Collaborate every week to instruct students, you know, to actually teach students live, and that students overall seem to appreciate it. Some of the things that we do to help prepare students, and I know Kim had mentioned that these materials will be available after the session, but as far as preparing students, we make sure that they have access to Blackboard and to Collaborate's help page. the On-Demand Learning Center. There are a ton of resources on there, and we've pulled some of them and put them on a website. We've made them available to our students in a Blackboard site as well, our online orientation course. So first of all, making sure that the student has the basic system requirements, to run Collaborate, that, they have the Java installed. If they're working from a Mac, that they have the right requirements on their Mac. We also provide students with the Participant Quick Reference Guide, which basically just gives them an overview of accessing Collaborate, as well as anything, that they may potentially run into. We also provide a lot of tutorial videos through it's kind of a combination of screencasts as well as on-demand resources that Collaborate has already put a lot of time into making. And then finally, we give them information about accessing the Blackboard app as well as the Blackboard Collaborate app. We have quite a bit of students now who are accessing Collaborate from mobile devices, and basically whenever we remind students that a session is coming up, we include the guest link, already letting them know, hey, if you're accessing this from your mobile app, here is the link so that you can get into it from your mobile app. And then sort of continuing along with that, after we've gone through prepping the students, making sure that the students are able to access Collaborate, we kind of jump into the instructor's perspective. So now, okay, as you said, showing instructors how to use it and sort of getting instructors ready, we start off by having them personalize their space once they're inside of the session. And I'm sure that, and I'm just kind of looking through to see how many of you have loaded a picture or are have a picture loaded, but just kind of looking at your profile, how to access your profile, how to set up your picture, and kind of make it more of a personal experience for the student, because the more connections that we can make with the student, the more likely that they are to continue using Collaborate and interacting. Any questions up to this point about the student access before I get into the instructor preparing for the session? You guys are a very quiet bunch. Okay. So those of you who had said that you're just starting to show instructors how to use it, or you have instructors who are already using it, one of the things that our instructors, I think, tried to do at the beginning when we first started using Wimba and Collaborate was they just went in. They just went into their session and said, okay, I'm going to throw up a PowerPoint, I'm going to use a textbook PowerPoint, and I'm just going to go with it. And so we really tried to come up with a plan for how instructors could prepare for their session. And so we gave them a template, and the template basically has, it's similar to like a lesson plan, except they're actually planning out their Collaborate session. So they come up with the objectives, what are the objectives for this particular session? What do you hope to accomplish? And then they come up with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, similar to what you would do in class, an anticipatory set, your direct instruction, and then some kind of wrap-up or takeaway. And using the agenda, we do have 100% participation of instructors who use the agenda now and use the template to actually plan their sessions. And they feel a lot more confident. They're not as nervous about using the technology just by having that template, in front of them as they're moving through the session. We also started encouraging our instructors to send out a reminder for the session, so they utilize the announcement email inside of Blackboard, and they include the guest link for mobile users. So that way they didn't find themselves having to deal with last-minute issues like sending out the link or, oh, what do they mean they're accessing it from a mobile device? So it really eliminated a lot of last-minute confusion or problems, and they found that when they were reminding students of the session the day of, that then a lot of students would log in because they just needed that little reminder to get into the session. Oh, I totally forgot, you know, that my anatomy class is having a session tonight. And then finally, we worked with instructors as far as the planning stages to make sure that they understood how PowerPoint works in Collaborate, that it's a compressed, you know, file, because we had a lot of instructors who would have animation or, you know, very heavy graphics, or they wanted to put a video link in and thought they could click on the video link. And so we worked a lot with instructors to explain, you know, that the PowerPoint, you know, that if you did want some type of motion, you know, that you would have to have builds in your PowerPoints, or maybe save it as a whiteboard file if you didn't have PowerPoint on your computer. And then we have a very small group of instructors who are using Plan, which is a program, you know, where you could plan out your whole session and then compress it. Any questions about the template or just some of the advice that we have given instructors as far as preparing and mapping out your session? No questions. Okay. So how many of you have run into any problems when you're creating your session? And if so, what problems have you encountered? Okay, so the settings, and that was definitely something that we ran into a lot of problems with right at the beginning. We would have faculty who would who would limit, they would sort of restrict participation or limit participation, and then certain students wouldn't be able to get into it, or you know, our IT department wouldn't get into it. And so whenever we created our sessions, we had our IT department set it up so that we can make as many things default as possible, the default settings that we wanted, so that our faculty couldn't go in and, you know, accidentally create a session incorrectly. And so I just want to go through, and I'm going to do a quick share here just to show you guys. And I did see the one question. We do use the same template for all of our online faculty. And the template, you know, basically covers the objectives, and then you know, your opening, the introduction, what material you're going to be presenting, and then some type of wrap-up. So with preparing the session, and whenever you're talking about permissions, we've found that the best thing to do is not to restrict roles. And whenever you restrict roles, oops. I'm not sure why sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of difficulty. There we go. We found that whenever you restrict roles, that's whenever students and or faculty have issues with actually being able to see the session itself. We also award points. So we do integrate with the Result Center, and we found that whenever students are awarded points, they are more likely to attend, and so they do feel like they're getting something for it. That incentive's there. So when we create the session, we don't restrict roles. We do use the Result Center integration. Some of the other things that we've done is we do make sure that we have early entry up to 1 hour, just so that instructors are able to get in there to test and make sure that everything is available as far as their material. They can load the material and take care of all of that. We also tend to create one session and then have it repeat. So we do repeat the session because it's at the same time every week. So that way instructors aren't scrambling to prepare their sessions. So, they know it's there, they're able to get right in, and it's already set up at the beginning of the quarter or semester for the entire quarter or the entire semester. And then we also make sure that we get the guest link and that we email that to students ahead of time, so that if we have students who are accessing the guest link, that we've created an announcement in Blackboard that includes that guest link so they could access it as well. Any questions about that, about just some of the tips or hints as far as creating the actual session? No question. Okay. So when you're actually inside of your session, we have had a lot of problems, and this is probably our #1 problem, is instructors didn't realize that to load a PowerPoint, they must have PowerPoint on their computer. So what was happening, we had instructors who were going home, they were getting ready to do their session, they would go to load their PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint wouldn't load, and they would get an error message. And it was because they didn't have PowerPoint on their computer. So we, really advised instructors, to make sure, okay, first of all, that you have PowerPoint on your computer, and then secondly, to make sure that you're testing it from your home computer so that you're sure, that if you are using PowerPoint, that you have your PowerPoint on your computer and that you're testing it. If you have an instructor who doesn't have Office, or who doesn't have PowerPoint, we also encourage the use of creating whiteboard files. And so they could, save their PowerPoint as a whiteboard file and then upload the whiteboard file into the session. Making sure that you're testing audio, to ensure that everything is working as it should be and that you're not having any problems with your audio. Restricting permissions if you needed to restrict permissions. So if you don't want people to have the ability, to go on a web tour or to use the application sharing or to use their video, making sure that those permissions are restricted. And then also being able to monitor private chat, which can be set up prior to your session or to make sure that if students are privately chatting. I know we had sort of a big issue with this because instructors felt like they were eavesdropping on private discussions. And then also just when you're inside your session, being familiar with or being able to monitor the participant panel. So we worked a lot on monitoring the participant panel and making sure that we were answering questions and responding to emoticons and just kind of keeping things as interactive as possible. Yes, Susan, go ahead.
Susan, could you type your question into the chat box? Okay, so which role were you speaking of, moderator versus participant?
Okay, so I did see, yes, I did see another question as well whenever I was talking about the participants versus moderators. So basically what we were having difficulty with was outside of your session. So when you actually create your session, you have the ability to restrict roles, which means someone can enter the session as either a participant or a moderator. And so what we had instructors doing was they were having everybody come in as a moderator, and then it wasn't recording any attendance because everybody's a moderator. So then they would come to me and say, well, nobody got 5 points for my session. And it was because they were restricting roles. And so what we had everybody do was don't restrict roles. So that way you come in as the moderator and everybody else comes in as a participant. And so that way you can, if you're using the Results Center integration and you're awarding points, the people who come in as participants are going to get points for attending the session. Now the only thing that kind of, as far as Collaborate goes, WIMBA used to keep track of time. So if a student was in WIMBA for 36 minutes and 22 seconds, you would see it. But in Collaborate, they get points. It awards points whether they're in there for 5 minutes or 50 minutes. So it's kind of, trusting them that they watch the whole session. So whenever I talk about restricting permissions, it's more restricting the participants' permissions so that you don't have students who, are using, clicking on web tour and taking you on a web tour, or clicking on application sharing or drawing on the whiteboard. So, typically with restricting permissions, it's more about restricting the participants' permissions as opposed to, somebody who's already a moderator. Okay, so just a couple of best practices that we've kind of learned along the way as far as application sharing. So with the application sharing, this is a lot of our accounting instructors use this, some of our safety and security instructors, some of our instructors who teach like an application-based class. So what they do is they open, they'll open an Excel spreadsheet or they'll open QuickBooks, and then they'll share their screen with the class and show them exactly how to complete, a particular assignment. And so what we found is that instead of sharing their entire desktop, we have told instructors, open the document that you would like to share and don't minimize it. Instead, click the middle button that says Restore Down. So that way when you go to Application Share, it pops right up into this nice, neat little window. And you could just click stop when you're done, and it takes you right back to the whiteboard. Have any of you tried to show videos in Collaborate? Not yet, okay. So what we found is, videos in Collaborate, yes, doesn't work well. And so I'm assuming that what you guys mean is, whenever you're showing a video in Collaborate, sound is definitely part of the issue. And when you're using the web tour, you can have the student follow you, but unfortunately, they can click on and kind of go, see what, go where they want to go whenever you use the web tour, so you kind of lose that control. Whereas when you do application sharing, you can control it because they're just seeing whatever you're projecting onto your desktop, but then the sound may be an issue. And so we have some instructors who kind of do this little cheat thing where they take their microphone and put it up to the earpiece. And so it's basically like the students hearing the sound, through their headset. And so we have had a couple of instructors who application share a video and then put their microphone piece up to their earpiece, and they have had some success with that. So that's just one sort of workaround that we use as far as showing a video through the application share. This was the attendance piece that I was talking about. So whenever you set up your session, it's actually right here. The Result Center integration. And so you have the option to integrate your Collaborate session with your Result Center. And you can automatically add the result column, and then you can also make it however many points you want to make it. Now what we found is that whenever the student views the recording, it will automatically show up in the Result Center. And then you can also push out the attendance from your live session to the Result Center. And so we have some instructors who they will just create the column, they'll integrate it and it'll show up for their recording, and then they'll just manually enter the attendance for their live session. Typically we award 5 points at most. It's not a huge part of their grade, but again, it just gives them some incentive for attending the session. And then this was the piece that I was talking about as far as guest speakers and having the guest link available in your class. So the guest link, you can get to it a couple of different ways. One of the ways is when you create your session, the guest link will show up at the top, and you could copy and paste it if you're going to send an announcement out to everybody in your Blackboard course. If you have an actual guest, like a guest speaker who is attending your course, who is attending your session, you can click the little edit arrow that appears right here and go to guest link, and then that will give you this box right here where you can enter your guest's email address, and then it will automatically send them a link to the session. We have had guest speakers, who have the ability, they have a headset or they have built-in speakers and a microphone, and then we do still have some guest speakers who will call in, and teleconference in. And then a couple of you have already talked about this, But depending on what version of Blackboard you're on and what service pack you're on, you may have seen in your tool section something called My Collaborate. Has any of you seen that? The My Collaborate, or it'll create like a Collaborate room for everybody who is enrolled in the course. I'm not sure if any of you have seen that. But we have something with our service pack update, and it's called My Collaborate. And so if it's enabled in your tool section, it automatically creates a room under your Blackboard scheduling manager that just stays there all the time. And it looks like the one that I have arrows to over on the left-hand side. And so what we did was we changed the name of it to Study Room, and we added a link to this room in the content area. So that way, students can access the study room at any time. It's just an open space where they could go in and work. Nothing's recorded. They, you know, can chat about whatever they want to chat about. And then down here is where our regular sessions show up, and where we're still able, you know, to create a session and have the session show up. Any questions about that? About the study room, or having an open study room for office hours? So then the last part that I just wanted to talk about is preserving your... Yes.
We did have a few questions.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So Susan was wondering if the link for the rooms is the same for guest users.
So do you mean the guest link?
So that the study room will always have the same link. Is that correct? Yes. So
okay. If you went to right here where it says Allow Guests, that would take you to that same area, you know, to grab the guest link and send that link out to guests.
Great. And then we also had one more question from Pamela. Could you repeat where to find the study room?
Yes. Okay. So if you go in your course, in your Blackboard course, to Course Tools, down at the bottom, if you go to Tool Availability, and it will give you a list of all of the tools that are available in your course, and it is called My Collaborate, I'm pretty sure. I could get you the exact name of it. I'm just logging into one of our courses right now. And that will bring it up. It's under Customization, Tool Availability, and it is called Blackboard Collaborate My Room. So you have a Blackboard Collaborate course room, which is that study room, and then you have a Blackboard Collaborate My Room, which creates a room for every instructor enrolled in the course. So we disabled the Blackboard Collaborate My Room and left the Blackboard Collaborate course room available. So that way we would just have the one study room as opposed to a room for every instructor enrolled in the course.
Okay, sounds good. I think let's move on to the next slide.
So just a couple of comments about preserving your work. We found that there were a lot of problems with getting to Collaborate recordings. Our students, as well as our faculty, made a lot of errors, and we were dealing with these errors on a pretty regular basis. The most common errors were they forgot to change their search criteria, and so they would be looking for a session or a recording, and they would panic and say it wasn't there when really they weren't changing the search dates. Then we had a lot of students who would click on sessions instead of clicking on recordings in the scheduling manager. And so a way that we sort of came up with alleviating this problem was we created 2 tabs in the course menu. One of our tabs is Collaborate, Live Sessions, and the other one is Collaborate, Recordings. And so when the students click on the Collaborate Live Sessions, it takes them to the Scheduling Manager page that we were just on, this page right here, and they can then click on their session for that particular week, which shows up right here. Then what we did was we created, in the Recordings tab, we have instructors create a link to the recording. So that way they're just going in one place, they're clicking on the recording link, they don't need to change any search dates or anything, and it's a lot easier because students aren't getting confused. We still have some instructors who get confused, but for the most part, the access is a lot easier by having those as tabs in their menu as opposed to trying to search for which recording they need. And then we have instructors use a very clear labeling system. Collaborate week 1 and the date, Collaborate week 2 and the date, so that students know exactly which week. They just go into their course, go to the recordings, and there's their session for the week. We've also had some instructors who they'll create, they'll have like a session that they want to reuse. And so we've had them download the MP4, which you can do from the recordings page, and then upload the MP4 to our school's YouTube account, and then they embed the video, in their course. So we've also used Collaborate that way and preserve those recordings so that they could use them for future sessions, or just as informational, something informational in their course. Any questions for me? I know I kind of, went over a lot, and some of it, I know a lot of you guys are just starting to get into Collaborate, but hopefully it gives you some ideas or, avenues to pursue or things to kind of look at down the road. Adding a recording link isn't the same as a guest link. I just saw that question. So a guest link is the link that you send to a guest or to somebody who, to access the recording from a mobile device, or a guest who doesn't have a Blackboard username. Whereas adding a recording link is creating you're basically adding a content item to Blackboard. So you're just creating a link to that recording session, so that students can listen to the session that already happened.
Oh, we have one from Susan. Have you heard of any issues with recurring sessions functioning properly?
Do you mean sessions that have already been recorded? So a session's already been recorded and then, do you mean when you repeat a session? Like recurring sessions when you set up a repeat? Creating a recurring session, yes, okay. Yes, We have had some instructors who have opted not to create a recurring session just because they did have some issues with grading the archive. And so they decided, to just set up individual sessions. So depending on the Results Center integration and how you're using it, we have had some issues with setting up the repeat session and having it properly, as far as the separate recordings and the separate archives. And so you've had some issues with the online study sessions. Yeah, for the most part, I would say we have half and half. Like half of our instructors set up repeat sessions and the other half just set them up each week as they go along.
All right, I think with that, I would like to thank everyone for attending this session, and especially thank Debbie for presenting and showing us all a little bit more about how they use Collaborate at PTI. If you all have any additional questions, feel free to email community@blackboard.com, and I will make sure I answer them, or I get in touch with Debbie to answer them. If you would like to suggest a new topic for this webinar, or you would like to present, please feel free to email community@blackboard.com, and we will be on the line again next week. Have a great day.
Thank you.